rotting driftwood on the foreign shores, spilling out into the ocean floor, and the memories all you've left without a trace. Paralyzed with the thoughts receding, current sweeps you with the silent bleeding through the heart into the darkest place. Well, turn around, there's nothing to see here. Run away, no reason to be here. It's the ghost who never goes away. Turn around and leave this behind now. You see the ground as it bleeds in the sky now. You fight the sea, you're always gonna drown. All the secrets that you're holding, all the memories you hide, all the frail thoughts that echo in the corners of your mind, they won't even last a moment, they will soon be swept away when the ocean takes you in its arms and carries you away. You carry all your burdens on the cross around your neck. You take whatever's left that you could salvage from the wreck, and the hard past will follow you like a lost dog on the beach, nipping at your trail till you've drifted out of reach. Yeah, turn around, there's nothing to see here. Run away, no reason to be here. It's the ghost who never goes away. Turn around and leave this behind now. See the ground as it bleeds to the sky now. You fight the sea, you're always gonna drown. In the broken line horizon, in the castles made of sand, you tried to hold it in your hands, you tried to understand it. The ocean asks the questions, and it holds the answers too. It dissolves away the lies about the things you thought you knew.
Hello, my friends. 'Tis I, Dame Amateur Kaliranya. My heart and my sword are yours. And 'tis I, Adalath Karakai II, bastard son of a real bastard. Your hearts are mine. And as is our tradition here on the channel, every Sunday, we are joined by the author of our story at hand, the BloodRedTiger, John Whitehead. Hello.
Howdy.
At your recommendation, John, we have made it through the entire first season of the Great Pottery Throwdown and have started in on the second, so thank you for that. It's yeah, they do make some strange decisions with the judging, but we were having a good time with it.
It's a rare one where you think, surely I could do that. Surely anyone could just slap some clay together, just cut some slabs, and go, made a thing. But yeah, no, not really. Haven't got a kiln for starters.
Sure. I mean, you got plenty of other crafting paraphernalia, but that takes a lot of space and energy and can be quite hazardous. So makes sense that that might be one that you don't have.
Air drying clay doesn't have the same strength to it either.
Oh gosh, what else has been going on with me?
Yuzu's here. Not really here, but here.
Oh, Yuzu. Oh, not really here. Yuzu has been quite busy of late, getting ready for an adventure. I can't really go into the details on that, but making doing some substantial effort in preparation for upcoming things, and also having family visiting and cat sitting and. So yeah, I understand why Yuzu is popping in to say hello, but maybe not available to chat on the for most of the stream here. Yes, okay. So this last week for me was a rest week. I had kind of a staycation. So I had some plans for getting stuff done. I got through a lot of it, but it also turned out to be the timing that we had our roof replaced on our house. It was like we've been trying to get the contractors to nail down a date for quite some time, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll do it. Well, yours is the next project up. It'll be the end of this week." We wait. Is it gonna happen? No. All right, we'll do it. It's definitely gonna happen next week. Can you give us a day, like, so that we can have everything ready for you? No, they're not give us a day, but instead, on Tuesday of this week, I get a call at like 8 in the morning. Hey, we can do your project today. Can we be over there at 11 o'clock? But it's done now. It was very noisy for those 2.5 days with all the hammering and bashing about and talking and everything going on the top of our house. But now we have a lovely new roof. We had previously had kind of a red, sort of a brick red color. Now we have more of like a foresty green color. It's kind of nice. And
that sounds cool.
Yeah, and should be guaranteed for 20 more years. So hopefully don't need to worry about that anymore for a little while.
Had my garage roof replaced, and they took off the terracotta-coloured asbestos tiles.
Right.
And replaced it with just some corrugated, battered tin that's all wonky, and I don't care. It works. Keeps the rain off. I'm fine.
Oh. And less carcinogenic. That's a bonus.
Always a bonus.
So yeah, while tossing and turning through all that, I got rehooked on a favorite mobile game, Slice and Dice. I know Yuzu is familiar with it. I was chatting with her a little bit about it last night, but it's It's one of these, randomized run-based games, it predates like Balatro, but it's sort of dungeon crawl Yahtzee. you you have this party of characters, each of which is represented by a six-sided die, and each face of each die has a different effect on it. And so you roll your dice, you get a couple of re-rolls, and you try to use them to defeat the monsters and advance. But it gets very, very wacky and complicated as you go, because as the characters level up and you get loot and whatnot, you get all these different ways to modify the dice by changing what is on the faces of them or adding different keywords to have the effects work differently in different situations. And there's like items that will just swap the faces on the die to different places so that other items will act on them in a different way. It gets very silly and very very entertaining. It's quite easy to just while away hours on it. But that is not what we're here for today. Here we are settling into some good old-fashioned devilish violence, I am told, right? This is to be a splattery chapter.
Yeah, this one does get a bit OTT.
A bit what?
Over the top.
Ah, over the top. Gotcha.
Yeah, Mickey does smush some things.
And that one is Chapter 48, Don't Run, I Want to Try Something. Our overall situation, recap-wise, Mickey has been rescued from captivity, was the broker demon Murgon, is that right?
Yep.
Murgon had drugged her, took her away, tapped her veins, recorded her memories, all of which to go off to auction online for $500,000. However, it turned out that some of the purposes for which these bits and pieces of imp were planned to be used doesn't actually work. So, yeah, the buyer wanted to use the blood and whatnot to summon a succubus, but due to the particular nature of imps in this particular hell, that would not go according to plan.
That's in this chapter as well.
Okay. So
that's why this is a long chapter.
Yeah, and Mickey just came back from a trip to the zoo after all that. It's just like, oh, I've been rescued now. We're good. I don't want to miss my appointment, my date with Larry. We're gonna go to the zoo and see some bats. But alright, next up. Alright. Feeling refreshed after her nap, Mickey grabbed a small bottle of juice and wandered out to the school field to see if the boys were still playing. The practice session had finished, and the boys were just leaving. They all wore body armor and helmets, making it hard to tell them apart. Mickey sighed. Whatever sport they played must be amazingly violent, and she'd missed it. She'd slept through it. Luckily, one of the boys chose that moment to turn around. It wasn't Larry, but he turned and bashed another armored figure on the shoulder, and when that guy turned around, it was Larry. He waved and started jogging her way. After a few steps, he turned and yelled back to the group, and somebody tossed him a ball. "Can you catch?" he asked as he approached. Mickey shrugged. Sure, usually. How heavy is it? Damn it. Double button bat. Fix co-host. Go. Larry laughed. Not very. But there's a trick. You have to twist it when you throw so it spins and flies straight. Makes it go further. He demonstrated with a light pass, and Mickey caught the ball without thinking. Huh. Larry beckoned. Come on, toss it back to me. She did, mimicking the twisty move. Sure enough, the strange shape speared through the air like a spear, she exclaimed. She knew spears. You can do the same thing when you're throwing a stick or a dart or whatever. Let your fingers slide past it when you let go, so it spins in the air. If you say so. Now wait there. I'll back up and throw it longer. Think you can still catch it? If you can get it to me. Atta girl. Larry turned and trotted a bit, then spun on the spot and launched the ball at her. It was a solid shot, headed straight at her chest, and she caught it easily. Nice shooting, she yelled. Can I try? He waved both arms. Go for it. Mickey was usually pretty accurate with her pitchfork, but that was a magical weapon, so it probably helped a bit. What could possibly go wrong with introducing Mickey to football? Even so, she figured she could hit somebody with a rock or whatever. Jack said exemplars were naturally accurate, so she wound up and flung the ball. Not super hard, but a good throw. It wobbled in the air and veered off course. She scowled at it and yelled an apology, but Larry was already in motion, sprinting to intercept. He leapt at the last instant and scooped the ball right out of the air. Mickey punched her fist in the air. Yeah, that was awesome! That's a heck of a throwing arm you got there, he called back. Mickey shrugged. I can do power, but not accuracy. He flashed her a grin. If you've got power, I can teach you accuracy. He glanced over at the other guys who were all on their way back to the school. I'd better get going. We'll try this again sometime, yeah? Sure thing! Cool. Remember, power comes first, everything else is just practice. Mickey grinned back. Got it! Mickey turned and ran back to the imp cave, determined to act on Larry's advice right now. Power comes first, and there was a perfectly good source of power just across the field, going unused. Now that she knew Giles wasn't some kind of mystical guardian, and in fact didn't even work there on weekends, there was literally nothing and nobody to stop her taking as much as she needed. Of course, it might still make somebody angry. So, she would take steps to cover her tracks and avoid discovery. She needed to draw a magic circle, which worked best when they were marked properly on the ground, but this was just going to be a test run, so she had options. She could draw on the floor with powder or something washable, but that meant cleaning it up afterward, and she couldn't be bothered with that. The sneakier way was to use something portable, like a rug. Mickey had recognized that possibility days ago, and had a ready-prepared rug rolled up in her treasure room. All she'd have to do was drag it to the library, feel around for the best spot, light some of her many, many candles, and concentrate for a bit. It wasn't an easy thing for most people, but Mickey was an old hand at stealing magic. Using a magic circle instead of her own innate talent meant she could graft in a couple of extra defensive measures. Once activated, it'd raise a defensive barrier, so she could take her time and not worry about being ambushed. The barrier would keep things out, but wouldn't keep her in, so she could teleport away if there was a problem. The circle also helped her convert the energy into a neutral form, which gave her far more options, and less chance of alerting any other magic users in the area. It was the best and sneakiest spell she knew, and one of the few she could pull off semi-reliably. The next problem was sneaking into the school. It was broad daylight, slightly overcast, so she couldn't just rely on her tactical super stealth urban ninja outfit. She would need a different approach. Act natural, Jack would say. Act like you belong there, and nobody will question it. Well, she was a student at the school, but the school was supposed to be closed. That said, Larry and his pals were allowed to go in and get changed and stuff. That's perfect. She ran to her little mirror and set about copying Larry's sport uniform. White running shoes, some tight red pants. If Larry got to show off his butt, so did she. And a loose white shirt over a set of chest and shoulder armor. She morphed some fluffy sweatband thingies onto her wrists and magically daubed black war paint across her cheeks, like Larry had been wearing. She grinned at her reflection. Yeah. Lastly, she conjured up a helmet, dark red with a cage of yellow bars. The arrangement of the bars looked okay, but she hadn't really paid that much attention. Likewise, the markings on her shirt were probably a mess, but with any luck, nobody would notice. She wasn't sure that her chest armor should include boob cups, but she couldn't be bothered changing them now. Presumably, the girl version of the suit included them, because who wants their boobs squishing? She grabbed the rolled-up rug and set off across the field at a brisk jog. She was done trickle-charging. Finally, she was going to sneak into the library and grab herself a proper chunk of free magic. There's an offer? Who wants their boob squishing? Oh no. Giles drove to the school, with Buffy thankfully keeping her sarcasm to a minimum regarding the state of his car. He commented that Makisha hadn't made fun of his vehicle, which the Slayer claimed was actually quite sad, for a number of reasons. Naturally, she refused to clarify, and Giles decided he was happier not knowing, so they made the rest of the short journey in silence. He wasn't entirely happy about borrowing school equipment like this, but he wasn't about to purchase a device of his own just to watch a single tape. No, this was the best course of action, and if everything worked to plan, there was no reason anybody would suspect anything untoward had occurred. Unbeknown to the school staff, Giles had obtained a copy of the janitor's master key almost as soon as he'd arrived, and so he could theoretically enter the building through any of the doors any time he wanted. Aside from the occasional after-hours visit to the library, and the odd time when he'd come in early, he hadn't had much use for it. Some of the sports teams would be using the double doors that led out onto the sports field, but the main doors would be locked, to prevent strangers wandering in off the streets. Buffy said the AV Club met in room 77, conveniently close to one of the side doors, so he parked his car close to that side of the quad, and they could dash in and out without much chance of being spotted. As the car's engine shuddered to a halt, he handed the skeleton key to Buffy, who gave him a smirk. I never realized you had this. Pretty sneaky, but so many possibilities. Do you think I could get a copy?
Certainly not.
If anybody realized the master key had been copied, Snyder would change every lock in the building, and the janitor's key would be watched like a hawk.
One copy is enough for our needs.
Fine, be like that, she sighed. She jumped out of the car, ghosted to the side door, and unlocked it before ducking inside. She had the cassette in her pocket, and would make a start on searching for a suitable player. Giles opened his own door and followed, quickly but not hastily. He didn't want to be spotted, and if he was seen, he didn't want to be noticed. He was a member of staff, and could probably bluff his way out of trouble should they be discovered. He pulled open the side door and peered inside. Somebody was moving around at the far end of the corridor, a bulky figure in pads and a helmet, carrying something on their back. He ducked back out of sight for a second, wondering what they were doing this far from the changing rooms, but when he glanced back, the kid was gone and the coast was clear. Oh, hello, Reinicorn. Giles briskly walked to room 77 and slipped inside. His eyes sought out the supply closet where the AV Club kept their old, but nonetheless expensive, equipment, and he picked out the indelicate clatter of Buffy testing to see if anything would accept the cassette. She looked around as he approached, triumph written on her face. It fits in this one, and look, it's even the same manufacturer. He blinked at her good fortune.
Excellent work.
He commented.
Does it need any special cables or batteries or
He waved a hand vaguely.
things?
Buffy grabbed a handful of colored cables. Got some kind of signal cables plus a charger. Looks pretty standard. You want to plug it in, make sure it'll play? Giles shook his head.
I think we've been lucky so far. Let's not push it by hanging around.
You sure you don't want to drop by the library? I know you got a TV there, right? We could hook it up pretty quickly, I bet. Don't want to have to come back if it's not compatible for some reason. He considered it, but again declined.
There seem to be students wandering the corridors. The sooner we're off the premises, the better.
Right. You go check the way ahead, I'll bring the boxes. And then you can lock the doors behind me. It was a good plan and worked flawlessly. Giles poked his head out of the door, then waved Buffy through. She ran out of the building with the purloined equipment, and after locking the classroom door, Giles followed. He paused again to lock the exterior door as Buffy, none too gently, tossed the gear into the boot of his car. They both jumped into the car, and Giles gunned the engine, battling briefly with the gear stick. Buffy suddenly turned in her seat, staring back at the school. What? Giles frowned.
What?
I dunno. Felt like I sensed something, but it's gone.
Could it be Makisha?
I don't know. It's just something. He bit his lip.
Do you want to investigate?
No, it didn't feel particularly evil. I'm not even sure I really sensed anything. Ignore it. Let's go watch some memories. Jacob Harper always dimmed the lights before donning his ceremonial robe. As usual, he wore nothing underneath, but on this occasion there was no helpless captive screaming in terror. The ritual instructions promised him that no sacrifice would be required, thanks to the potency of the spell components he'd purchased. They didn't say he couldn't use a sacrifice, just to give the spell a boost, but he figured it best to follow the instructions. You don't improvise with $500,000 of supernatural body parts. If the spell didn't work for some reason, he didn't want the seller telling him he'd done something wrong. So he dressed up in his authentic antique sorcerer's robe, all rich purple silk, trimmed in gold and embroidered all over with silver thread. He precisely marked the 2 magic circle designs on the floor of his basement, paying special attention to the connecting wards and the placement of the more mundane ingredients. That done, he fetched the case with its 3 glass containers. one each of blood, hair, and powdered fingernails, all extracted from an actual captive succubus. He took the components and poured them into a small clay bowl, stirring the powder and hairs into the blood with his fingertips. He was vaguely surprised that the blood hadn't dried, and even more surprised to find that it was still warm. Oh, guess it really is demon blood, then. He set the bowl in the middle of the destination circle and moved to stand in the control circle. He turned on the spot slowly, carefully, looking down to check that he hadn't scuffed or moved anything with the trailing robe or his bare feet. Everything seemed to be in order. The spell had to be cast at exactly 4 p.m., and as the minute hand crept closer, he began to chant. He had the words pinned up where he could see them, since he couldn't hold anything in his hands during the casting stage. He chanted, and as the clock chimed the hour, he intensified his efforts. He'd never attempted a physical summoning before, though he'd dealt with extraplanar evil on numerous occasions, promising blood and souls in exchange for wealth, power, and influence. Never before had he dragged a denizen of the pit into the world or mortals. Oh, oh, I see. It's supposed to be of. Okay, took me a second. I was thinking that maybe it was it meant never before had he dragged denizen of the pit into a mortal, having them possess somebody, right? But okay. Never before had he dared dream that he might enslave a beautiful, immortal shapeshifter. He had the measure of the chant now, and completed the prescribed 12 cycles before moving on to the oaths that would power the spell. The syllables were written in the dark language of devils, harsh to pronounce and painful to hear, but he made his way through the words with almost no hesitation, until finally he was done. All the words had been spoken. He waited. At first, nothing. The candles around both circles faltered, once, then guttered and died. The electric lights faded to nothing, leaving the chamber in pitch darkness. Only then did the destination circle begin to glow. Softly at first, then brighter. A pulsating pink light that swelled and filled the room. Mist poured from the circle, as though the floor had opened up into another world. A light appeared above the circle just for an instant, then it vanished. Then another, a bright flash, a tiny humanoid shape, then it was gone. Then another, then several more, a staccato flurry too fast to count. And then a brighter flash of green lit the room, and the pink glow faded to a sullen haze on the ground. Jacob blinked. The air above the circle wasn't empty. A winged figure hung suspended in the air, dimly lit from below. A feminine voice echoed in his mind. "Come closer, Sumner. Let me see you." He narrowed his eyes. Even in the near darkness of the basement, he could tell something was wrong, and he wasn't going to step out of his protective circle until he knew what he was facing. You want Jacob, or should I give that to Ad?
I'll do Jacob.
Okay.
Tell me your name.
He said, staying put. I'm surprised you didn't, just foist the role of some attempted summoner of succubi upon me. Well,
No, you're doing fine with Larry.
While in principle, it does seem like the sort of thing that you might get up to, I also am well aware that you are quite incompetent with magic, and I would never dare. Yeah, spellwork and I don't have a great history. Call me Suki, whispered the voice. And you are Jacob.
Yeah. I have summoned you. Now I am your master. Do you understand?
I understand your words, human. I laugh at them. You did not do your research, and now you have made a grave mistake.
Mistake?
I will tell you 4 things about the Zaradai.
That's you?
She nodded slowly.
Okay, I'm listening.
Zaradai cannot be magically coerced. Zaradai cannot be magically enslaved. Zaradai cannot be magically summoned. You believe you have brought me here against my will to be your pet. You? She paused, disdain dripping from the mental voice. Are a fool. This was not going the way he had expected.
You say you can't be summoned, but here you are, in my circle.
I was curious. I wanted to see what manner of man would dare attempt such a thing. Jacob scowled.
Show yourself, Suki. Enough of this darkness. I want to see my prize.
If you insist. The voice chuckled darkly, and the pink glow intensified until Jacob could see the result of his handiwork. A humanoid female, clad in a diaphanous blue dress and heavy jewelry. She had 6 long horns on her head, 2 protruding from the forehead, and then 2 more pairs further back, like an ornate headdress. The horns were decorated with golden bands and dangling chains. She had leather wings like those of a bat, and a long, sinuous tail that writhed in the air behind her. Even from across the room in near darkness, Jacob could tell that she was a stunningly attractive female. A brunette with a deep tan, dark eyes, lush lips, and a slender figure. Also, and this was a sticking point, the hovering demoness was only 6 inches tall. Well, that's going to ruin my plans for the evening, he thought ruefully.
I figured a succubus would be, well, taller. Was there a problem with the portal?
Suki shrugged. The portal is functional and still open, I might add. She floated down to the ground and folded her wings with a delicate flutter. See here? This group of markings mean that when you die, the summoning will be ended. No longer concerned for his safety, Jacob stepped out of the circle and walked over to look, crossing the distance in a single long stride. He crouched, and Suki turned to look up into his eyes. She really was quite attractive, and reminded him of the power-hungry young executives he'd preyed on in his younger days.
Damn. I wonder if there's any way to make you bigger.
There is, she replied, using her actual voice now that he was close enough to hear. But it wouldn't be worth it. As I say, once you die, the summoning will end, and we will be returned home. Jacob stood up, suddenly nervous again.
We?
He glanced around the room, certain they were alone, but now the shadows seemed to be full of tiny winged shapes, eyes glittering in the eerie pink light. He tried to get a proper look at them, but whenever he thought he'd seen one, it vanished, flickering away as though he'd imagined it.
What are you doing? An illusion? You can't frighten me with ghost images, you little witch.
Suki spread her wings and floated up to hover before his face. The last thing you will learn about Zaradai, we hunt in packs. Mickey blinked. At some point during the ritual, she must have gotten bored or tired or something, because she was lay on her side in the circle, and the library had gone dark. She pushed herself upright and looked around. The candles had burned down to stubs in their little metal cups, and the power circle was inert. What the? It's nighttime already? She got to her feet the fastest way she knew, by teleporting. It can't be night yet. I'm not even the tiniest bit sleepy. Fizzing with barely contained energy, she hopped down the stairs and bounded to the library doors. The corridors outside were dark and silent. Everybody had gone home, and probably wouldn't be coming back until after the weekend. She couldn't wait here until then. She had to get out. But, sneakily. First things first. She zipped back to the rug and rolled it up, candles and all. No way could she risk leaving evidence in the library. Giles might not be an official guardian, but he'd still be annoyed that she'd snuck in and taken... Oh, wow. She realized the spell had worked pretty well, in spite of her apparently dozing off, or blacking out, or whatever, and she felt great. Really super hungry, but otherwise she was feeling better than she had since she first arrived in this world, all those days ago. The spell circle was just a temporary effort, and so couldn't channel the same power as a properly applied circle, but in the brief time it had been working, she'd gained as much power as she could normally pull in over several days, even accounting for the power lost during her natural digestion process. Plus, in addition to that, she'd also pulled in a few hours of local bad magic, because she'd been parked right on the best spot in the whole library. So, she'd stolen some power. Now she just had to get away with it. She ran out into the corridor and started checking the classroom doors. It shouldn't be hard to open one of the windows, and she only needed it open just a crack, so she could teleport through the gap. In practice, things worked out less easy than she'd hoped, but not as tricky as she'd feared it might be. She ended up pusting the rug through the window and teleporting out after it. Even folded up, the thing was too bulky for her to teleport, and she wasn't prepared to leave it behind as evidence. Once she was out of the school, and had all her stuff gathered up, she legged it back to her lair and stuffed the rug out of sight. The burned-out candles were tossed into her garbage bag, and then she sat down and took a deep breath. She'd done it. Her trial run was complete. Now she just had to stay out of trouble for a few days, to make sure she hadn't broken anything, and then she would go ahead and try for the big one. Staying out of trouble would be easier if I didn't have people trying to kill me or drug me or chop me up every couple of days. She picked out a tin of fruit and used her thumbnail to jab some holes in the top so she could pour out the juice. What would Jack do, she wondered. This was her usual process for dealing with complex problems when Jack himself wasn't available to ask. She tried to remember a situation where he'd dealt with something similar. There was that time when the skeleton collector wanted to collect Jack's skeleton. Oh, no worries, Unicorn. I appreciate lurks as always. The dastardly trickster had set all manner of traps in an attempt to capture the wolf, but hadn't done anything to ensure his own safety. Or at least, he hadn't done enough to ensure his own safety. Jack had tracked the man down, and Mickey had stuffed him into his own bone-cleaning machine. Skeleton collector, is that a reference to something? I think I saw that in a comic. It was like a joke.
No, I just made something up.
Okay. It was like... It's one of these kind of satirical
bone
comment...
collector is a thing.
What's that?
Bone collector is a thing I've heard of.
Yeah. But like,
I think it was a movie.
It was yeah, I guess this would have been too recent for it to have been incorporated into your story as a reference anyway. It was like, one of these satirical kind of comics where there's this couple of people in a house, you're like in a living room talking, and the one guy goes, Oh, did you hear the news? The skeleton collector died. And, uh, the other character, skeleton collectors, he's that guy who comes and steals people's skeletons while they sleep. And the first character says, "Yeah, I don't really agree with his ideology, but I'm still sad that he's gone." And and then it turns to a different camera angle, and there's like a a blob of person in a jar, and he's like in like a glass case. He's like, "I don't know that I agree with that," and then the other people are like, "Too soon, Dave."
There was the Zach Speaks Giant on YouTube, and one of his bits where he's going, "Oh yeah, the existence of the Tooth Fairy suggests that there is the much darker and much larger Bone Fairy."
Alright. The many-limbed machine had taken several minutes to strip off all the skin and meat and mushy bits, and the guy had screamed for an impressively long time before there just wasn't enough of him left. Jack had picked out a leg bone to gnaw on, mostly out of spite, and the problem was solved. So, the solution is, go kill some bad guys. She tipped the fruit juice into a tumbler, then peeled the lid off and poured the fruit into a bowl. Food and a drink. It felt good to have a plan, or at least a direction of attack. Her plan had 2 stages, and the first stage was to enjoy her fruity snack. Stage 2 saw her march into Willie's place and slap her hand on the bar. A dozen faces, scaled, pale, horned, human-looking and otherwise, turned to watch. "Oi!" she barked, standing on tiptoes so she could glare at the barkeep. "I want a word with you." Willie turned and regarded her carefully, staying well out of reach. "Oh, hey. Welcome back." "You drugged me and let bad guys take me away," she accused. "I could have been killed." Well, obviously you weren't, so no harm done, I guess. And you did get a free drink out of it," he explained, reasonably. Yeah, there is that, I suppose." "Hey!" Mickey wasn't falling for that. Her palm slammed onto the bar top again, rattling the glasses and nerves of everyone nearby. "Let me tell you something, Mr. Willie. When I meet people, I say, 'Hi, my name's Mikisha, but my friends call me Mickey.' And sometimes somebody will say, laugh and say, what do your enemies call you? But do you know what I say?" Willie shrugged. "You say you don't have any enemies?" Mickey frowned. He'd guessed her line. She plowed on regardless. "That's right. I don't have any enemies. And do you know why?" The barkeep rolled his eyes. "Is it because of your sparkling personality?" The imp narrowed her eyes and teleported to a sitting position on the bar. Willie flinched and took a step back. "No, it's not." She hopped down to the floor and he backed away further, nervously. Mickey ignored the people sat at the bar and walked closer to the now terrified man. "I don't have any enemies, because when I find out that somebody's actually trying to hurt me, I hunt them down and make them stop." "I wasn't trying to hurt you," Willie stammered. "Those 2 vampires." "It wasn't Pat and Sven. How stupid do you think I am?" No, I meant, the other 2 vampires." He improvised hastily. "The ones that want you dead." "Sheridan and Baldy Guy? You gave me poison so those 2 could kill me?" "Yeah. Shit." Mickey fixed him a glare. "Right. So, Buffy asked me not to bust you up, but I'm really angry at you, and I happen to be extremely powerful right now, so here's what's gonna happen." She turned to address the room, shouting so she'd be heard. I'm going to count to 10, and then I'm going to smash up everything I can get my hands on, like this. She casually swung out her left fist, not even hard, and turned a chunk of the bar to kindling. Also, FYI, when I say I'm smashing everything, that might include monsters, so yeah, be advised. Willie was already trying to climb over the bar to make his escape. Most of the monsters stayed put, waiting to see who'd blink first. 1! Shouted Miki. She smashed the bar some more, using both fists this time, and knocked the entire top portion into the air, spilling a couple of drinks. The creature sat at the bar flinched away, standing up and growling at her. 2! She turned to the back wall and tore off a shelf, sending a load of bottles to smash against the ground. Nuts. She had lost count. Oh well. 7! Some of the patrons exchanged worried glances as Willie sprinted out through the door. Mickey shrugged. Counting was boring anyway. 10! The girl emphasized her intentions by teleporting to the nearest occupied booth and kicking the table into the air. An impressive trick, considering all the tables were screwed into the floor, and the booth's occupants got the message loud and clear after watching their drinks sail across the room. However, not all the patrons were prepared to abandon their favorite watering hole just because a petulant teenage human girl wanted to make some noise. As the various vampires and lesser demons made their disorderly escape, a magnificently horned Fjarl demon stood up and bellowed his disapproval.
Shall I do?
Yeah, go for it.
This is our place!
He bellowed in the grunting demonic tongue.
Will we stand aside while this child destroys our haven?
The girl turned her dark-eyed gaze on him and growled back. Willie crossed me. I'm making an example. The demon blinked in surprise.
You speak Fjarl?
A little, she replied. Enough to get by.
Then know this, Mikisha. You will die by my hands. When we are done with you, when we tire of your screams, I will kill you and take your skull as a souvenir. This is my turf, and you are a fool to insult me this way.
No, you won't. No, you won't. And I don't care. That guy needs to be taught a lesson. If you want to learn a lesson as well, that's fine by me. She cracked her knuckles. It wasn't especially menacing. A second demon spoke out, a towering stone-encrusted beast known as Mantle.
You've shown us that you're strong. I'm not impressed. You're just a pathetic child. If you're lucky, we may let you leave this place alive.
The last of the cowards had fled, leaving the girl alone at the front of the bar, facing a small mixture of demons and monsters. Along with the Fjarl and Mantle, a four-armed snake demon had chosen to remain, as had two hooded figures swathed in black robes, a pair of mages on a vacation from the dark dimensions. Hoping to stop the fight before the place got trashed any further, the Fjarl took a breath and prepared to immobilize the girl with his paralyzing mucus. Unfortunately, she was primed and waiting for somebody to make a move, and she vanished before he could let loose. She reappeared behind him, one foot pulled back ready to strike, and first he knew of it was a solid kick to the back of his knee. He yelled in pain, spraying his payload onto the ceiling as his leg went out from under him. The damnable girl leapt past and over him as the other demons closed in to attack. She slipped past the snake demon, heading directly for Mantle. Mantle swung his huge fist at her, the knuckles spiked with jagged rock, but she slid beneath his punch, ducking inside his clumsy guard and delivering a huge uppercut to his gut. He didn't quite leave the ground, and he certainly didn't shatter into pieces, so the girl rolled back out of his reach before he could retaliate. The snake demon drew a pair of short swords from their scabbards on his back and advanced on the girl. He wove a complex pattern of hypnotic movements as he moved, hoping to ensnare her attention long enough to land a killing blow. But the girl upset his plans by tearing up another table and hurling it at him. He shrieked in alarm and ducked, covering his head with all four arms, and the girl starting running his way to capitalize on his distraction. Her advance was stopped cold by a magical barrier that leapt up from the ground and wrapped around her arms and legs. One of the hooded figures was pointing her way, controlling the magic, and while she wriggled, he clenched his free hand into a fist. The glowing strands of magic started to wrap tighter and tighter around the girl, a crushing, choking force. Makisha turned to frown at him, then vanished. The magic trap snapped shut around itself with a loud bang, and the wizard recoiled in shock. She appeared instantaneously, right in front of his face, and drove a mid-air punch deep into the recesses of his hood. Everybody in the room heard the impact, and when the black robes billowed from within and settled to the ground, suddenly empty, it appeared that he had magically transported himself to safety. But the girl's fist and forearm were smeared with greenish blood, so probably not. "Cool!" she exclaimed, flicking gore from her fingers. She quickly sought out the other wizard, who had decided he didn't want to share his brother's fate and was maneuvering for a better defensive position. "Don't run!" she called. "I want to try something." Before she could carry out whatever she was planning, the snake demon surged at her from the side, swords stabbing forward as he kept low to the ground. The girl gave a startled yelp and spun away, using the tip of her tail to slash at her opponent's face. The room went still as the assembled demons suddenly saw through the girl's illusion, and she stood in all her diabolic glory. Wings, horns, tail, and all. She was sporting a shallow cut on her hip, red blood running down her leg. The snake demon bared his fangs and wiped blood from his brow.
I don't say much. I see you now.
He lunged forward again, swinging both swords in a diagonal arc. Instead of ducking or retreating, the girl leapt up and over his attack. As she brushed a fingertip against the hilt of his blade, she vanished again, and the sword vanished with her. "Shiny!" she crowed, brandishing her stolen prize. The snake demon spun in place, trembling with rage. Those swords were a sacred pair, deeply significant to his clan.
Face me, girl. Face me blade to blade if you dare.
Must not be all that important a clan if we have Fjarl and whatever the other ones were called with lovely capital letter names, and he's just Snake Demon.
She stuck her tongue out at him. The snake demon seethed in rage, but before he could attack, the Fjarl demon gave a bellow and charged, hands outstretched as he ran to seize the girl and tear her apart. The girl giggled and spun away out of reach, but not before flicking out with her stolen weapon and lopping off the Fjarl's left hand. He stared at the spurting stump in frank disbelief, shooting the snake demon a scathing glance. The snake merely shrugged. His ancient blades were enchanted to be sharp. Surely everybody knew that. The girl was also appropriately impressed by the blade, and swished it about in the air like a new toy. Mantle, with his rocky hide, had no fear of blades, however sharp, so he took the opportunity to jump into range, raising both fists to bring down a mighty crushing strike. Unluckily for him, the girl knew better than to chop rocks with a sword, and she didn't take the bait. She didn't even turn to face him, lashing out instead with a solid sidelong kick to the gut. Mantle let out a huge woof of air as he was launched backward onto another table, which collapsed beneath his weight. He rolled off that onto a bench, which also crunched apart under his hands as he tried to right himself.
You
wrote a story once about somebody who did use a sword to chop rocks, yeah? Ah, yes, The Breaking Blade, about one of my mother's friends, Dorado High Star. I think you've read that one, John. It was a little one-off in the Kali setting. Anyway. Makisha found this hilarious and howled with laughter. She blipped to the Fjarl's side and grabbed his remaining hand, twisting the surprised demon around into a sneaky hip throw that sent him wheeling through the air into the shelves behind the bar. His horned head crashed into the bar mirror, bringing everything down around him in a cascade of bright colors, broken glass, and substandard liquor. Whee! Crowed the girl, whirling around playfully as the enraged snake demon surged forward.
I will not be ignored. Stand and face me.
He whipped his body back and forth, driving his blade at her in the sharp twisting motions of his clan's unique style. She parried the first two attacks, then hopped back out of range and tilted her head. Seen it before. She vanished mid-step and reappeared close to the wizard instead. The robed creature took a few steps back and threw up a wall of magical fire. The girl jogged through it. Devils don't burn, silly, she chided. He made a gathering gesture with both hands and pulled together a loose barricade of broken furniture. He reinforced it with magic, hoping to keep her at bay while he thought of something better. But while the construction was strong, it wasn't solid, and the girl simply teleported through it. Boo! She said, eyes flashing with malice. Startled and out of ideas, the wizard drew killing magic into his deadly talons and rushed at her. With a surprised blink, she rammed the snake blade through his chest, killing him instantly. The black robe puffed out with a quiet poof, the wizard's body disintegrating. The stolen blade crumbled to dust as well. Snakeface shrieked with anguish, but the girl just pouted, flexing her suddenly empty hand. Oh well, easy come, easy go. Mantle tried to sneak closer while she was distracted, but he wasn't built for stealth, and his hoarse wheezing gave him away. She heard him coming and ducked under his swing, coming up at his side and using his own momentum to slam another vicious punch into his ribs. This time everybody heard the crack, and a scatter of stone chips flew free. Mantle gasped and sagged. The girl, grinning wickedly, grabbed his wrist and started to twist. He howled in pain and tried to pull free, but she was horribly, terribly strong and refused to budge. Desperately, he swatted at her with his other hand, but after 2 solid smacks, she grinned cheekily at him through a gushing nosebleed and split lip. Still unable to comprehend the strength he was seeing, he could only brace himself as she clamped both hands on his captive wrist, drew back her leg, and kicked him in the underarm. Mantle's rocky crust buckled, and deep within he felt something break. Mercifully, and seemingly bored, she let go of his ruined arm and turned to look for a new opponent. She spotted the Fjarl winding up for a sneeze, and teleported out of the way. The mucus spattered against Mantle, disgusting but harmless. Trying to follow the girl's erratic progress around the room, the snake demon was caught off guard when she teleported behind him and grabbed his neck with both hands. She tried to twist around, but as Mantle had found, she was just too strong to wrestle against. She squeezed his neck and he felt his eyes bulge.
Stupid girl, you cannot strangle a snake.
He tried to reach back and stab at her with his sword, but she raised one of her wings and flicked the blade aside. Before he could try again, perhaps stabbing her legs, she squeezed harder. Thick serpentine muscles resisted for a second, but she wanted trying to strangle him.
Wasn't.
Yeah. She wrung his neck like a wet dish rag, reducing sinew and bone to pulp and splinters. Makisha jumped off the snake demon as it collapsed to the ground. She spread her wings and coasted through the air for a second, before dropping like a stone on the recumbent rock giant. She landed hard, stamping on his sternum and cracking more of the stone. I bet everybody thinks you're made of rocks. And you've got lungs and stuff under there. I can hear you huffing and puffing. She dropped to her knees atop him and started digging her fingers. No, he grated out. Stop! She yanked as hard as she could on a large stone chunk, and it tore away with a wet sucking noise. Mantle roared and thrashed against the ground, clearly in terrible agony. Makisha leaned back and lashed out a boot, stomping on his chin and snapping his neck. The feral demon stood by the door, pointing furiously.
You may have won this round, Makisha, but I shall return. We will have vengeance for this insult. My clan will hunt you down. You shall never again know peace.
A large stone slab, trailing blood and gore, struck the feral demon full in the face and crushed his skull like paper. Did none of you guys hear me telling Willie why I don't have enemies? Okay.
It's like it's in that chapter.
Brutal and kind of all over the place episode, chapter 48. Let's see. It is noon. I probably have time for a second chapter. This one especially doesn't look like it's super long. So,
This is half the length of that one.
yeah. So this is chapter 49. Come get me soon, okay? Giles sat in his front room. Oh, he's starting to say something?
No, sorry, that's another burp.
Oh, Giles sat in his front room, sipping from a china cup while studying the untidy string of wires leading to and from the back of his television set. The installation actually turned out to be fairly simple. He already had a video recorder hooked up, and it was just a matter of swapping a few cables over to the purloined tape deck. Buffy assured him Xander would know how to connect the VCR back into the loop, such that they could duplicate the tape and return the machine before Monday morning. She had phoned the boy to be sure, and since it was already late, he'd agreed to stop by the following afternoon to watch the tape. She'd also called Willow, ostensibly for the viewing, but also in case there were difficulties with the setup. She couldn't phone Makisha, of course, so she set off into the night to find the girl and inform her of the plan. You'd better make a trip to the ATM, she joked on her way out. You're sure to have questions after watching your memories. He hadn't laughed. Now he was alone with the tape in his hands, a machine rigged up to watch the contents, and a gnawing sense of dread. Makisha had been born into a society created for the systematic torment of human souls. She had spent an unknown period of time surrounded by lust demons, and God only knows what she witnessed there. She had then been raised and trained by an actual wolf, or wolf man, to fight evil with terrifying brutality. By her own admission, she'd spent time with extra-dimensional blood drinkers who taught her unique sword-fighting techniques. He was fairly certain the content wouldn't be suitable for teenagers. He wasn't entirely sure he really wanted to watch it himself, although he dismissed that thought immediately. Of course he was going to watch it. He was a watcher, for Pete's sake. Gathering information was his purpose in life. If Makisha had been human, he wouldn't have worried, but since devils apparently lacked a conscience, it was entirely possible she'd witnessed and lived through events that would turn any normal child into a shrieking basket case. At least the girl had no apparent interest in sex, so he wouldn't be showing anything of that nature to the children. He shuddered. He took a deep breath, his mind made up. He would have to watch the tape himself, or at least skip through it and get a sense of the contents. The first scene was confusing, not least because the video image included the top of Makisha's head, and her wet hair kept drifting into view. The picture within the water was surprisingly clear, however, and he watched as a mad-eyed woman ranted on and on about some vision of doom. Her voice was deep and booming, her presence oddly distant. Some other voices boomed, the words indistinct, and the world picture seemed to shake. He saw Mickey raise her hand to lean against a vast furry creature, then look up into a colossal amber eye. Giles blinked. Jack Gray? That would mean... Of course. In this memory, Makisha was a tiny imp. The wolf's teeth, when he spoke, were terrifying. He was promising the madwoman that they could handle whatever was coming. He turned to face another woman, and Mickey, perched on his shoulder, saw her as well. She had long white hair, artfully styled, and deathly pale skin. Her eyes were red, and Giles immediately pegged her as an albino. Her name, apparently, was Taylor, some kind of companion warrior. Jack asked if she was up for some violence, and the woman laughed throatily. Giles swore and hit the pause button. Even on the shaky image, it was clear that Taylor the albino had fangs. He bolted for his notebook. Giles made a list of questions, reminding himself that Makisha was already supposed to be on the council's payroll. He really wanted to watch the rest of the scene in detail, but for now his most pressing concern was scanning for prohibited scenes. He held down the fast-forward button and let the picture jump forward for a while. When he released the button, the screen showed him a pleasant modern park. Green grass, leafy trees, flower beds in bloom, civilians chatting and walking, dressed for summer. The voices she overheard all seemed to be in English, and Giles wondered if that was her spell in action. The accents sounded American, and the scene could have been anywhere. Some of the people were talking into miniature cell phones, smaller than a deck of cards. His eyes widened. This was a memory from the alternate future. Mickey wasn't paying much attention to the crowd, however, just the cursory quick scan for threats that he'd been trying to drill into Buffy for months.
Nice day out. You sure you want to keep that hoodie on?
He recognized the voice, or at least the cadence, of Jack Gray, and blinked in mild surprise when Mickey looked around and down to the wolf at her side. "I don't know," she replied. "Those guys are wearing them." She pointed to a group of men pouring from the rear of two vans. Far from wearing hoodies, the men were clad in dark blue robes. Each man jumped out and held out his hands to receive a weapon thrown from within. Warhammers, swords, and spiked maces from one van, shotguns and assault rifles from the other. "Oh, hey, you think they're bad guys?" she asked. The men were glancing her way, muttering to each other. "Oh, yeah, they're gonna come fight us." The wolf sighed.
That blonde guy with the white gloves looks like trouble. If they attack, I'll try to lead him away and keep him busy. You try and take down the guys with guns.
"On it."
And stay clear of my lightning. Can't aim it like this, remember?
What if things turn nasty?" The wolf bared his teeth and pinned his ears flat.
If they hurt you, go to cold black. Kill the fucking lot.
The scene blurred for an instant. Everything moved several yards forward, and Giles realized this was Mickey's teleportation. The robed men fired a few warning shots into the air to scatter the crowd.
Citizens, rejoice! We come among you to cleanse the taint of evil. Evacuate the area immediately.
"It's the Knights of Purity!" yelled an onlooker before being dragged away by friends. Mickey turned to Jack. "They're looking for evil!" she shouted. "Should we help?" Jack's reply came loud and clear despite the distance.
They think we're evil, kiddo.
Sure enough, several men were running her way, weapons held with intent. "Are you guys looking for me?" she yelled. "Because I'm not evil. I just look like a devil. I'm a mutant. Look, I got a card and everything." She pulled her ID card and held it up and out for the men to see, but they weren't interested. One near the back dropped to one knee and took aim with a crossbow. Mickey frowned. "I'm warning you. I'm a good guy. If you hurt me, that means you're the bad guys." She rolled her eyes and sidestepped the incoming crossbow bolt. Giles was dismayed at how slow the bolt appeared to travel, as Mickey turned to watch it sail past her head. "And if you're the bad guys, you're gonna get smushed," she added. Two men charged her, swords and shields head high. Last chance? She offered. No? The scene blurred again, and Mickey was suddenly kicking the crossbowman in the shoulder. He rolled and sprawled on the grass, cursing. Mickey was already gone, disabling more warriors with fast jabbing punches and kicks, then teleporting away before they could retaliate or concentrate their efforts. She heard a blurt of gunfire, then a crack like thunder. Jack's lightning threw sharp shadows on the nearby trees, and she glanced his way. The wolf was braced, all four legs spread and a grin on his muzzle, as long arcs of electricity sheeted off his fur to lash at everything within a sizable radius. Men threw themselves to the ground, thrashing and frothing. Wet grass smoldered and leaves puffed to ash where the bolts touched. Mickey whooped with joy. Yeah, get him! She chose another target, who was staring at Jack in shocked horror.
You can't do that.
The man protested.
I was told hellhounds used fire. My wards are useless.
Are you warded against this? Asked Mickey, slugging the man in the gut and following up with an uppercut to the face. He staggered back, dazed and bleeding, but didn't go down. Giles made a note. Even without magical strength, Mickey was terrifying, and also extremely brave, since several of her enemies were wielding firearms, and he had no reason to imagine she was bulletproof. A procession of attacks flickered by, Mickey teleporting to somebody's vulnerable side, kicking, tripping, or punching them once before moving on. The entire enemy force was casting about helplessly as she skipped between them, giggling. At least one man had been accidentally shot by his teammates, and Mickey had jogged one guy's elbow such that he poked his spear into a comrade's back.
Mickey, down!
Jack's voice echoed in her mind. She ducked without hesitation as something rushed past her. The white-gloved man shimmered and appeared a short distance away, skidding on the wet grass. Mickey looked down and saw heavy footprints on the ground in front of her. Oh, sneaky, she muttered approvingly. Super fast invisibility? The man nodded, eyes narrowed.
My name's...
What do I do?
What's that?
Okay, you go.
My name is Phantom Express. Prepare to die.
Mickey frowned. You're an idiot and your code name is stupid. He took a running step away from her and shimmered out of sight. Jack? She called. He'd been able to warn her once, and she knew he could see stuff that normal people couldn't. Hopefully his mutant vision could warn her again, otherwise she was about to get clobbered. She looked around for a sign of something moving at super speed. Jack! The wolf was busy tackling, snarling, and biting, but he found time to spare a glance her way. Lucky his telepathic voice wasn't muffled by the mouthful of blue robes.
Coming from your left. Fast.
Mickey held out her hands and closed them into fists. A barbed pitchfork appeared in her grip and she crouched, setting the butt end against the ground for her enemy to run into. The trail of ghostly footsteps stopped and she heard a horrified yell. The man skidded, barely managing to dive clear of the fork's lethal spikes. He flew headlong over the crouching imp, tearing his cloak in passing, and landed hard on his side. His momentum carried him a long way, and when he lurched to his feet, his blue robes were covered in mud and grass stains. Mickey twirled her pitchfork. If you keep attacking us for no reason, you're gonna get hurt. Giles stopped the tape, frowning thoughtfully. So far, so good, thought Giles, glancing over his list of questions and comments. He was pleased to note that Mikisha was quite capable of fighting humans in a non-lethal manner, but he was somewhat concerned about her invisible pitchfork. How did that work? Where did she keep it? Did she still have it with her? He pushed the fast-forward button for a while longer, careful not to go too far as the tape appeared to only be half recorded. When he judged that it had advanced far enough, he resumed normal playback. The scene was a dark forest, in the sense that it was both a thick, tangled woodland and also nighttime. Mikisha was walking slowly, warily, scanning this way and that as she watched for movement in the undergrowth. Apparently satisfied that nobody was following or watching, She teleported to the base of a small bluff and crouched low. There was a heavy stone set into the earth, and she carefully lifted it to reveal a dark hole. She crawled down, holding the stone aloft with a free hand, until she was safely inside the shaft. Then she let it drop back into place with a dull thwop. Giles watched as the girl climbed down a knotted rope, dropping the last few yards onto a ground of compacted earth. She was evidently quite at home in an underground lair, and could see remarkably well despite the complete lack of any visible light source. As she glanced around the room, Giles saw all manner of assorted wooden boxes, barrels, trunks, chests, and sacks, maybe a couple of dozen containers in all. Judging by the overspill on the ground, Giles judged that this was Makisha's treasure room, and if each of the storage containers was even half full of loot, the room would be worth millions of dollars. Mickey walked to the nearest box and opened the lid, confirming his suspicion. The boxes contained treasure. She dug some shiny knickknacks from her pockets, dropped them in, closed the lid, and wandered toward the far end of the room. A shadowy figure loomed up ahead, and Giles recognized the silhouette of Jack Gray. Getting closer, however, the revealed scene was somewhat different. A threadbare bedroom and some ratty blankets, watched over by a crude stone statue. Mickey skipped to the bed and sat down, looking up at the rough-hewn wolf. The statue stood resting its hands on a polished golden shield, but the statue itself was a single piece of gray stone, evidently hand-carved using a small knife or chisel. Even with great strength, it must have taken considerable time and care and effort to make. "Hey, Jack, I'm home. Do you miss me?" There was no man's answer. "I've been to the guild house again today, checking up if anybody's heard anything about you, but there's no word yet. I guess whatever you're doing, or wherever you are, it must be something really secret, or really important. I bet you're saving the world or something, right?" She sighed. "I wish you'd come and get me. I could help. I'm ever so helpful, and I'm being good. I'm saving my money in case we need it for something special. Well, not my money, but I'm saving it. If there's a big disaster or something and I can save the day with a whole bunch of treasure, I'll be ready." She lay on her back, looking at the packed earth ceiling. "I'm ready, Jack. I've been ready for ages. It's boring here. Nothing exciting ever happens and hardly anybody likes me. Well, apart from little Flossie, the little girl I rescued from those orcs that time. You remember I told you about that? Must have been quite a while ago now, because I heard the other day that she's getting married soon. I'm gonna rest some more." The imp yawned and must have closed her eyes. The picture went fully dark. Her voice, small and lonely, lingered in the quiet. "Come get me soon, okay? I know I keep asking, but I don't know what else to do." Keats was mildly furious. His child, Sheridan, had been hunting without him, and he sensed from her changed demeanor that she was losing respect for her sire. That was intolerable, but he had kept his rage in check while his undead body healed. Now that his eye had healed up and could see almost normally, he felt strong enough to venture back into the night and re-stamp his authority on this town. He was a master vampire, older than a century and more than a match for any of the local bloodflecks. He would track down Sheridan, find out what she was planning, and then he would either assume command, as was his place, or kill her allies and torture her a bit as punishment for her impudence. He knew she had been spending time in a particularly sordid, demon-friendly drinking establishment, the place called Willie's. He'd been in once, to announce his arrival in Sunnydale, and found it beneath contempt. Only the most pathetic kind of degenerate would spend any time in a place like that. He sneered as he approached the door. Even from here he could smell fear and misery and blood, lots of blood, and smoke. He slipped into his vampire visage and shoved the door open, striding into the place and taking in a scene of utter devastation. The lights had all been torn from their mounts and crushed. But darkness was no impediment to a vampire. He saw that every booth, every single table and chair, was broken and piled in the center of the room. The pictures on the walls had been taken down and smashed. The bar itself was a memory, and the cash register was torn open like a tin can. He saw the head and shoulders of a Fjarl demon, held in place by the horns jammed into the wall. A reptilian carcass lay at his feet, crushed almost flat in places. Stranger still was the sound coming from the far end of the room, a vaguely wooden clonking, like bamboo wind chimes, random and tuneless. Keats moved to investigate, and almost tripped over a collection of sundry arms and legs in a spreading pool of blood and gore. He stepped over the mess and walked to the wooden pile.
What in the hell's happened here?
He wondered aloud. A large rib cage was suddenly pushed up from behind the pile, followed by the hated devil girl Makisha. She somehow managed to look small and unthreatening, but was liberally slathered with blood and slime. At least some of the blood was her own, he noted, and when she grinned at him, she was missing a tooth. He stared, unbelieving.
You did this? Are you insane?
The girl smirked. Yes, and maybe a little? Also, they were asking for it. I told them to go. He raised a brow, scanning the corpses, but of course vampires left no remains.
Sheridan?
Nope, I haven't killed any vampires today. She grinned again. At least, not yet. Okay, what are we doing? Let's see, what's the word count on this one? It'd be nice to finish up on 50.
Even shorter.
Okay, yeah, let's finish up on 50 then. So we'll go ahead and do this one. Let's go hunting.
This is silly.
This is a silly one? Okay.
This is silly. I want to make one of these scenes into like a 3-second cartoon. Would be brilliant. You'll know it when you see it.
All right. Our half centennial here. Okay. I wish Jack were here, thought Mickey for about the 100th time that day. He'd have stopped me if he were here, but he is not. And now I've made a massive mistake and caused myself a big problem. She frowned at the rock monster's ribcage. Well, technically it was her ribcage now, since she'd just spent an age scraping all the blood and muck and goppy bits off it using a piece of broken glass. It was almost clean and sounded really cool when she hit it with some of the other smaller bones she'd salvaged, but there was a problem. It was too big and heavy for her to teleport, which meant she was going to have a hard time sneaking it home. She couldn't climb up to the rooftops with it, she couldn't teleport up there, and she absolutely wouldn't be able to glide up using her wings. They could barely lift her own weight as it was. Well, I'm not leaving it behind, she thought indignantly. She'd spent too long cleaning it up. Besides, she wanted it for her treasure room. The Fjarl demon's carcass was similarly de-ribbed, but she'd eventually had to admit that the school probably wouldn't be too happy with her donating a free Plinky Plonk to the music room. She bet Snyder wouldn't mind, but somebody would. And also, she vaguely recalled something about the demons being a big secret somehow. Plus, the bones kept snapping when she pulled on them. Hands on hips, she turned and admired her prize. She had to get it home somehow, and lacking any sneaky or clever options, she was just going to have to run for it and hope her illusion of normality could keep people from noticing what would otherwise be a very strange sight. She grabbed the thing with both hands and lifted it easily. She'd burned through a ton of power to fight those monster guys, but she was still pretty strong, and would have been one of the world's fastest runners if her legs were longer. Balancing the cage in one hand for a moment, she gently pulled the door open and looked outside. It was quiet. The coast was clear. Nikki hefted the ribcage over her head and legged it. She got off the streets as quickly as she could and ducked into the alleyways. She tried to plot a route sticking to the darkest shadows, but she was used to just running across the rooftops and hadn't paid any attention to the maze-like warren at ground level. She had to stop and double back several times. I was getting annoyed. Scowling, she skidded to another dead end, set her precious cargo down, and blink-zipped to a rooftop for a better view. She could sense the approximate direction she wanted, thanks to the big magic blob shining in her magical awareness like an especially grumpy lighthouse. She scanned the buildings, worked out a route to get her moving in the right direction, and teleported back down. Angel smelled blood in the air and paused in his patrol, vampire senses alert and jangling. A lot of blood. Not human. He turned this way and that, getting a proper lock on the scent, then ran to investigate. So much blood. So many types of blood. Meant something big had happened. Could still be happening. He didn't want to run headlong into a trap, but he was able to move in complete silence when he wanted to, so he ghosted through the shadows at a good clip, ignored or unseen, until he encountered Mickey the Devil Girl coming the other way. She spotted him immediately, darkness and stealth notwithstanding, and skidded to a halt, cursing under her breath in a language he didn't recognize. He stepped out into the open, and she hastily hid something large and bulky behind her back. A moment later, she unfurled her wings, as though she could hide something that size without looking suspicious. Angel blinked. Wings? The illusion flickered, and then dropped entirely. He saw the girl in all her slightly hellish glory. Wings, horns, tail. Her skin was tinged red like a bad sunburn, but the overall effect was more kid in costume than creature of darkness. She was also liberally covered in demon blood, as though she tried to pick up a bowl of the stuff and tipped it down her front. The clashing scents were hard to ignore, and he struggled to keep himself in check. Angel grimaced.
Hi.
He tried. Nothing, blurted the girl. I found it. I haven't been fighting. She flashed him a nervous grin. You were like that when I got there. He blinked. Did any of that make sense? He frowned for a moment.
What?
Mickey narrowed her eyes, sensing a weakness she could exploit. The vampire was bamboozled. She doubled down. I need to get this to the hospital before it's too late. If I don't, the president will die. He needs a new ribcage. Stat.
I'll...
It's okay, I got this. Keep up the good work. Okay, thanks, bye. She sprinted away around a corner and out of sight. Angel blinked again.
Huh.
Mickey made it back to her cave without further incident, manhandling the ribcage in through the entrance tunnel. She dropped it by the entryway and had a quick scout around to make sure she was alone. The bed was empty, and there was no sign that Xander had been back. She'd have to thank him next time she saw him, so she fetched the ribcage and took it to her treasure room. From now on, she decided, it's also going to double up as my trophy room. She reached between the bones and pulled out the bundle of cloth she'd stuffed inside for transport. She tossed it aside and gave the ribs an experimental tap with a fingernail. In fact, it can triple up as my music room. She just needed a stand so it could echo properly when she hit it. One of her folding stools proved a suitable mount, lifting it to roughly the right height and keeping it steady. Satisfied at that, she went to her room and opened her newly designated random stuff drawer, digging in the back to find a coat hanger. This she took back to the trophy room and hooked it over one of the metal struts. Yeah, that'll do. She shook out the bundle of cloth, revealing a scorched, tattered red coat. A fine dusting of ash drifted free. Confused, intrigued, and suspicious in a roughly equal measure, Angel decided to track Makisha. Smelling like she did, it'd be a small miracle if she wasn't attacked by something, especially if she really was on her way to the hospital, as that would take her through some known vampire hotspots. As it turned out, she wasn't really headed that way at all, and Angel wasn't entirely surprised. Her high-speed babble on top of the mixed scents had left him virtually stunned, but now his head was clear and he didn't appreciate being treated like a fool. It didn't take him long to figure out that she was headed toward the high school, which meant she was likely headed home to her burrow. What the hell was she up to? Was that really a giant rib cage she was carrying? Why on earth did she want it? Had she really just found it lying around somewhere? That last one sounded extremely unlikely. If she made it to her home, he wouldn't be able to follow, and then he'd never get any answers. He couldn't exactly risk lurking outside either. If somebody saw them, they'd get suspicious and have a look around, and then Mickey's little hiding place would be ruined. She might be annoying, but he wouldn't do that to her. Fortunately, he knew where she was headed, and he didn't have to hide a giant rack of bones from prying eyes, so he could run and get ahead of her. At least, that was the plan, but he changed his mind when he spotted Buffy jogging in his direction. He drifted to a halt, conveniently close to a broken streetlight. He leaned against it and waited for her to reach him.
Buffy?
He said by way of greeting. Angel? She replied coolly.
Have you seen Mickey tonight?
He asked. She quirked one elegant eyebrow. Not yet. I'm just on my way to her place. Why'd you ask? He turned the words over in his head, but wasn't sure how to explain what he'd seen, so he just shrugged.
I spotted her a minute ago. I think she's been out somewhere. She mentioned the hospital, but she's headed back home.
Okay, cool. I'll go catch up with her. Got any plans tonight? He blinked. Plans? Was she joking?
Just the usual, really. Patrol, fight some vampires, save some people. Thought I might check out Willie's. I've been hearing some gossip I want to check out.
Buffy nodded. Good, that's good. I was gonna do the same, later. Maybe bring Mickey along for the additional slayage. The vampire frowned. Usually he was Buffy's backup. Until now, none of her allies were capable of fighting hand-to-hand against the undead. The situation made him feel uneasy, and he didn't like the implications. With Mickey around, Buffy might not need him. Not as a fighter, anyway. Maybe not at all. Buffy was looking at him expectantly.
Right. I'll keep an eye out for you two later, then.
She nodded slowly. Okay. And with that, she was gone, running off to meet her new friend, leaving him in the shadows. Buffy picked her way through the underbrush to reach Mickey's top-secret imp cave, and stuck her head into the entry tunnel. Knock, knock, she called. Maybe a cordless doorbell would be a good idea. Battery-operated. Is there? Came the reply. So Buffy walked quickly through the tunnel and into the main chamber. Me, Buffy. Mickey emerged, frowning, from one of the side rooms. The one Buffy had mentally tagged as the peanut butter shrine, but Mickey insisted was soon going to be filled with treasure. I don't get it, she announced after a moment's thought, though. Me Buffy who? It's not a joke. But you said knock knock. Yeah, I was knocking. On your door, which you don't have. The poor girl looked utterly confused, and Buffy rolled her eyes. I was just trying to get your attention rather than barging in unannounced. Oh, right. That would be rude. I get it now. Okay, good. Buffy paused to study the girl. Is everything okay? You look a little... Is that blood? The imp immediately put a hand to her nose, but Buffy was more concerned with her leg and pointed. You're bleeding. It's fine. Nothing to worry about. I can fix that. Let me just... She laid a hand on her hip and closed her eyes for several long seconds. Buffy bit her lip as the girl's hand shone with the golden healing glow. Fixed. announced Mickey, proudly, lifting her hem to show an expansive leg. Buffy quickly locked her eyes on the girl's face. I believe you. I don't need to see under your skirt, thanks. Okay. She dropped it and put her hands behind her back, smiling innocently. But don't think I haven't noticed that broken tooth, Missy. What have you been up to? Just messing about, she said, not even a little bit convincingly. I cleaned most of the blood off. Buffy felt an urge to pinch the bridge of her nose. You know what? It doesn't matter. I just met up with Angel. He said you were talking about the hospital? Mickey giggled at that. I knew he was going to follow me, so I told him something silly and he got confused. She tilted her head. Maybe it's my accent. Buffy knew Angel was old-fashioned and kind of stuffy, but it would take more than a few silly words and a funny accent to confuse him for any period. She resolved to ask him about it when they next met up. Possibly later, since she was planning a patrol. Speaking of which, I was thinking of heading out to look for your buddy Keats. The master vamp, the bald one? Uh-huh. Buffy frowned. But I see a certain long red coat hung up in the room there behind you, so I'm guessing you already found him, huh? Mickey nodded solemnly. He interrupted my work. I made him apologize. Willie told me Keats was the guy who wanted me poisoned, but Keats said it wasn't him, and I believe him. Buffy blinked. You trust the word of that guy? The devil shrugged demurely. I was very persuasive. Right. Is he still alive? Or, well, not. Drawing breath? Or, again, not, I suppose. She shook her head. Did you kill him? Yep. Would have been cruel otherwise. Oh my god, what does that mean? Buffy swiftly changed the subject. So, I noticed you used a bit of healing magic on your leg. Anything you want to tell me? Oops. No, I didn't. You totally did. I saw it. Where did you get the power for that? I thought you were tapped out. The imp looked sheepish and tracked her toe on the dusty ground. I might have done a little test magic thingy in the library. Oh, you might have, might you? She hesitated, frowning. Did it work? Are you okay? Mickey nodded. Oh yeah, I'm all good. I may have burned off a little, just out of high spirits. And maybe smushed a few monsters and bad guys, just slightly. The imp noticed Buffy's expression and she faltered. It's fine, nothing permanent. Well, nothing much, nothing important. Is that a rib cage back there? Mickey glanced around as though she needed to confirm which rib cage she meant before turning back nervously. It's mine, she declared. I won it fair and square, in a fight. I'm using it as a plinky plonk. A xylo thingy with bones. Xylobone? The Slayer took a deep breath. She so didn't want to deal with this right now. All she wanted was a simple patrol, female bonding, slay some vampires, and go home for a couple of hours' sleep. I was going to go hunting. You're invited. Since Keats is dead, that just leaves Sheridan and the mysterious green-eyed man, who I totally would have told you about it if you've asked. Huh? What green-eyed man? The one who poisoned you and kidnapped you and cut your hair and fingernails and stole your blood. That's weird. Mickey tilted her head. I don't know any green-eyed men. His name's Murgon. He's not human, and whatever he's up to, I think he's earned what did you call it? Smushing? Mickey grinned eagerly. Let's go hunting! Buffy frowned. Seriously, can you do something about that tooth? It's kind of freaking me out. Giles would be so disappointed if he could see what his slayer was doing, but on this occasion, she couldn't fault Makisha's logic. Any loot a vampire might be carrying turned to dust along with the vampire, and that was just a waste. Not that she'd ever dare try anything like this by herself, of course, but with Mickey around as extra muscle, the two girls could not just outfight a vampire, but humiliate them. The imp's magically boosted strength was enough to grab a vampire and hold them immobile, while Buffy searched them for a wallet, purse, money clip, jewelry, wristwatch, whatever. Only then did she give them a quick smile and a dusty send-off. Mickey inexplicably claimed first dibs on any men's watches they bagged. They agreed to split everything else equally at the end of the night. "What do you want these for, anyway?" asked Buffy, handing over yet another fake Rolex. "They won't fit you, and you can't tell time." "They're for Jack," explained Mickey, "because he's taking a ridiculously long time to come find me." She smiled sweetly. Buffy rolled her eyes. "I thought you were going to fix that tooth." Phew! 50 chapters down indeed. You writing and me reading.
We are like 65 and a bit percent in, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we might even get there by the end of the year. Because, let's see, we've been doing three chapters a month. 50, so we need 9 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it'd take us into December, but we might get there, depending.
They're not all the same length, though.
Well, sure, none of the ones leading up this far have been. All right, well, speaking of which, we think we're all clear for next week?
I think so. I'll keep an eye on the horizon and let you know if anything changes.
Okay. Yeah,
As for the cartoony scene, I could just a Hanna-Barbera vision of just Mickey scampering about, holding the ribcage up over her head, and then when she runs into Angel, she just puts it behind her back, and then the wings go.
Yep.
Like, you can't see it.
Yeah. And the
big grin,
the absurd bluff. Yep. I found it like this. Yeah. Good times. Okay, well, I am probably going to go fall back over on the couch. Thank you, as always, for sharing this story with us and sharing your time and presence as well. So, we will keep it up. Any parting authorial comments or teasers before we sign off?
We've laid some groundwork here for Angel feeling like he might not be needed anymore.
Ah, yes. Angel the third wheel.
And also, did you spot the language gag when she spoke Fjarl? Because you speak Fjarl? He's like, a little, enough to get by. It's just a default response. That's just what she always says when anyone says, "What, you speak thing?" A little.
Was that what she said about Romani at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay.
And all the other language she was asked.
Yeah. All right.
I've also sent you a picture in Discord of two of the Brotherhood and Phantom Express.
Ah, yes.
Superhero idiot. Just for funsies.
Yeah, sort of Knights Templar with guns, huh?
There's quite a few more scenes in the future from Mickey's memories, of course. And the bit Giles saw of the pale albino woman, Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a setup for the sequel to this story.
Ah, okay.
Which we'll get to another time, because it's not yet been written.
Right. Well, until next time, live with honor, and your heart is unassailable.
Don't do anything I wouldn't do.
And never carry firewood over state lines.
Let me go, there's no doubt. Gotta get out of this small town. You took my heart from me, now you're everywhere I see. Set me free, let me fly. Let me find new kinds of highs. We're just wasting here, waiting for another year. We both know the score. We've been here once before. So many words unspoken. You took my heart, it's already broken. You don't have to wait, I can take the pain. I will surrender, let me go on a new adventure. It's my time, watch me build another life. Find another space, explore the world and find my place. Hope you find some peace of mind. Hope the night was worth your time. Threw my heart away, we won't see another day. We both know the score, we've been here once before. So many words unspoken. You took my heart, it's already broken. You don't have to wait, I can take the pain. I will surrender, let me go. It's a new adventure. On a new adventure. Adventure.